you were able to see that the signal all of a sudden spiked to what you see right there, which also is not rational. That means that somebody is playing with a wireless network remotely, literally. It's open network. They destroyed me. Modem adapter. Every one I purchased was dismantled without giving me any ability to put security features on it. That's one thing. Plus the doors downstairs always are open. It doesn't make any sense. These people have more control over the stuff inside of this house than what I do. Now let's connect to it. Wow, not capable to connect to the internet, all right? It's a very heavy topic I'm about to post, and it looks like I am totally surveillance on the internet. Absolutely am surveillance on the internet about everything I do. Yeah, if I have to, I will. Let's do it like this because it doesn't even allow me to. It does not allow me to. And that's actually a trouble because I already have posted in respect to the cluster bombs earlier on. Yeah, that was on July the 10th, 2023. The cluster bombs was a subject in MKUltra for which Russia claimed had 100 times more cluster bombs than what the West has. And they claimed this to be the case since the war in Afghanistan. They did not use the cluster bombs due to international regulations and such. That kind of stuff is basically what they claimed. And they claimed that if Ukrainians start using them, the hell is going to break out and they will prevail. They will destroy Ukraine completely. For everything, even if they would suffer losses, they would make it up with cluster bombs. But, and they were asking me, they would keep asking me, why do you want cluster bombs? Why do you want cluster bombs? Why do you want cluster bombs? They were asking me about every topic they delivered in MKUltra in respect to the war. I always sided with Ukraine. And they wanted to know particularly why do you want cluster bombs involved in it and so on. Putin initially feared of the cluster bombs. He feared of the cluster bombs because his idea, I psychologically have profiled one in respect to coming war on people of Ukraine. He feared them because it demonstrated that if even cluster bombs would be used from Ukrainian side, it would indicate like extreme, that's how he saw it, like extreme hostility toward Russians, not toward invasion, toward the war crimes he and his military committed against people of Ukraine, but toward Russians. That's basically how he interpreted everything. For everything he would say, he would have his own meanings, he would continue and interpret. And so for him, use of cluster bombs from Ukrainian side, it would mean like a totally different type of hostility toward the Russians. Why did I ask Americans already during MKUltra to supply Ukraine? Absolutely. The one who brought the subject to the table about the cluster bombs even during MKUltra was none other than Joe Biden. Listen, Joe Biden was involved in this case through Moscow since my age 4-5 when it all started. In my eyes, Joe Biden is an individual who worked behind the curtain with the Soviets since 1975, no less. Very few people, in my opinion, would be as much familiarized as with Soviet Union as was a socialist Joe Biden. And that's okay, because Joe Biden stated me, he claimed me that it will be like this all along, till eventually the two sides are going to separate. It no longer will be everything I have witnessed, it will not be, it's not. I don't know anything about this. All I know is about my own situation, and all I know is a quarter of Ukraine is missing because of this kind of politic. And it's a long way back to Mariupol, all the way to Donetsk, Rostov-on-Don, basically. It's a long way to Crimea. It's a long way. It's going to take a whole lot to get it done. Ukraine did not even get, I'm not going to say fighter jets or anything like this. It's an extremely difficult job. I admire Ukrainians. I have to say I admire Ukrainians. There was this war, Talvisota, Winter War. It's how the Soviet Union started the war on Europe, basically, 80 years ago, before the World War II even broke out. They assaulted next to St. Petersburg. I think the name is the city is a Viborg, but I'm not sure. On the Finnish side of the border it was. And because they wanted to move the border, the Soviet border, as far as possible from their capital, St. Petersburg. I don't know if it was the Moscow, the capital back then. Yeah, and so they assaulted. Actually, Moscow was the capital, but St. Petersburg probably second to Moscow, capital of that region, whatever. Because Russia is so huge. Soviet Union back then was even bigger. And so I really admired Finnish people for their determination to stop the Soviets no matter what. But there is no doubt about, because of what I witnessed in Ukraine have taken place prior to the war in Ukraine, where they would have Americans, they would have everybody that would help them evaluate positions, how they strategically they would defend themselves from the Russian assault, from the coming Russian assault. That Ukrainian people, there was the same shit in Finland. I guarantee before the Soviets assaulted Finland, Finland too was extremely well prepared. Finland too was strategically, I am very certain, strategically they had top strategists, military strategists. It was not just a war out of blue. Finland was so prepared, extremely well prepared. But I'm going to tell you that what I see today in Ukraine is going beyond of what we have seen in Finland prior to the World War II. The people are determined to get every piece of the country back together. And they have proven this beyond any doubt with a lot of sacrifice. I see guys jumping in ditches. I see the guys getting in a close combat without any warranty, not being hit by the bullets, shrapnels, bombs. It's extremely courageous stuff they do. It's impossible to expect that they would be advancing faster, especially due to high-tech Russian technology from the West, which equipped Russia prior to the war in Ukraine. Russia is technologically very, very advanced. There is no doubt about this stuff. And what we see from Ukrainian soldiers is just worth admiration from my point of view. And anything else, they demonstrate determination to not stop this. We are at this stage, yes, now. It's called the cluster bomb stage. Cluster bombs are maybe the worst weapon, second to nuclear bombs, second to the nuclear arsenal. But I figure out that in MK Ultra, based on psychological evaluation, American side had a lot of problem with use of cluster bombs. Yet it appeared to me all the time they were trying to sell Ukraine. So I started to act again insane. Just like when I was a kid, when I was in 1982, 11, 12 years old, and I demanded more and more movies, military movies from the West, so that I could be more and more brazen in the faces of the top Soviets. It's exactly the same thing I figure out that if you want the freedom, you're going to use whatever it takes, whatever's going to come your hand. It doesn't matter how much you yourself are going to bleed to get this, but you will get it done no matter what. Because Putin counted on one thing. That's why I figure out that you just have to do it no matter what. Whatever you get, you use it. That even a cluster bombs would be a tool that it's not about the war only, it's not about liberating the country only, it's about giving yourself, rationale. It's about giving yourself, pledging yourself, remember the suffering, remember the sacrifice, using a sacrifice so that you can pave your way for every enemy out there to know that you're not out there for sale, and there'll be a battle, there'll be a war till the bitter end. That's why I support it in every kind of decision that Ukrainians wanted these cluster bombs. They wanted them. And through the media, we can see that they requested them. So there is no reason for me to stay neutral in this matter, because I feel that whatever doesn't break you, and it doesn't matter what it takes, it will definitely make you stronger, not crazier. The craziest stuff was happening when I was 4 years old and delivered to Russia, to Moscow, for the crazy games, for really unlimited games of insanity, lunacy, that hunted me for the next 48 years, called as MK Ultra case. You don't want compromise when it comes to war. War is war. Basically, there is no compromise with an enemy like this that have caused so much damage, so much harm. You either live to free, to liberate yourself from the evil, for the enemy to acknowledge that your existence is not out there to bargain with, or you simply destroy one even for the cost of your own existence. That's the way I always played. This is my motto. This is the way it is. There is no negotiation. I was known to be a dead man walking, thrown inside of the psychiatric hospital in 2013, signed away with more than just the psychiatric pills they used. They used the military-grade poison, I was told. I was told that one of the psychiatrists, the leading psychiatrist in this case, Muja, was actually a military expert, that he served in the military with military poison, with that kind of stuff they were playing with. The suffering I suffered during this psychiatric hospitalization is impossible to tell. It didn't stop me. It made me, I'm not going to say go insaner, but I became a kamikaze without absolutely any assistance, giving no consideration whatsoever to any threat about the new hospitalization, whatever they were threatening me with is going to happen if I ever even dare to mention MK Ultra. Well, that's the difference between, either you live and you fight to the bitter end when it comes to the stuff like this, or you don't even exist. Basically, the difference is none. There's only one difference. For the one that wants to erase you, you only make things easy for one. That's all there is. That's why I supported whatever it takes for Ukraine to be, to have the ability, I'm not going to say to defend itself, but it's her right to existence, for the people of Ukraine to have the right to existence, to decide, to act, to do in their country wherever they deem is the right thing for them, for their independence, for their existence to be. That's why I did. And I'm going to tell you that Vladimir Putin have, and it's why I'm actually even asking myself, deeply asking myself. I'm deeply asking myself because, they make the whole thing in such a way, especially when I consider that it was United Kingdom, basically Great Britain, which was the main ally of the Russia. That's what makes me scared about this whole thing. We're talking about Great Britain, we're talking about the British royals, we're talking about Windsors, Saxe, Coburg, Romanovs after all, too, that objected to American proposition on how the cluster bombs at the request of Ukraine should be in fact given to Ukraine. It scares me because you know why the hell it scares me so much. It scares me because it was an MKUltra subject, and because this country here worked against people of Ukraine all the time. All the time. This is the country the most deserved for the war in Ukraine. All the time. Gas, minerals, petroleum, oil, all the time. All the time. And it scares me because this is the country that is so speculative, so cautious, where you get equipment for Putin did not get directly from these people, but these were the people that arranged the meeting with death for Ukrainian people through supplies which were redistributed, technologically equipped from the side of the United States of America. These were the icebreakers. British royals were the ones that paved the way. And it's scary to me when I see that it was the United Kingdom that opposed this type of weapon. What gives me some other, from my end now, speculation. Why the hell would you go and I mean, there's a lot of countries involved in this conflict. Why were not other countries? Why were you the one that you opposed to this type of weapon? What is it exactly that you? Well, the history about your psychiatric approach toward natural disasters, if you want to call them, or man-made disasters, have proven that you were always right about absolutely everything. So I would not even be surprised that this time, since Joe Biden was the one who started the subject during MKUltra about the cluster bombs, and the subject went wild because it's a prohibited weapon and such a horrific injuries take place because of this kind of weapon. Why was it that I was the one afterwards bullied, questioned, interrogated? Why do I want this weapon and so on? And you know who interrogated me? You know who took full advantage of me? You know who Russians did in Moscow? Through these people here. So when that kind of happens, it's not because Joe Biden would be the one that would. Why was the Joe Biden discussing with Russians system Patriot, system this, system that, all kinds of weapons, Barthawk, fighter jets, all kinds of stuff. Everything was absolutely timed. So, but the thing about it is that Joe Biden laid, in my opinion, till proven innocent Joe, whatever Putin requested at that point. So he could use me to get the feedback from me why I have, in fact, even pushed forward during MKUltra. I was drugged up, but even not drugged up, I don't know anything about the cluster bombs other than it's extremely dangerous, deadly, horrific weapon. West insisted me that I shouldn't even talk about this subject. I have to talk about this subject. There are other subjects we could talk about because, you know, there is fighter jets that West failed to use. It was other weapons that West deliberately have failed to use to liberate land from the people of Ukraine, their country. So I don't have a choice. When it comes to the subject, I know it's going to be a lot of people suffer. I know it's going to be horrific. I know this is a horrific weapon. But you didn't give me choice other than to maybe keep silent about it. And the next thing that we would see is exactly what I'm about to post here. And that's basically that Russia claimed that had 100 times more cluster bombs than West. So yes, I do suspect, I even suspect, and will continue to do so till Biden proves his innocence in respect to Ukraine, till Ukraine is completely liberated. A possibility has in it that it was in fact Putin, the one who threw on a table the topic of cluster bombs. You know, unlike Patriot, which Putin had no control over, system Patriot, Russia did have cluster bombs since Afghanistan, numerous supplies. And it's what Putin actually even, it came out later on that in a way, to me, it came translated to me that it was actually Vladimir Putin who bargained for the cluster bombs. That it was actually his way that he would actually use these cluster bombs. There are so many from the wars, from other wars that Russia stockpiled itself, that would even make it up, like second to the nuclear weapons that Russia has, the biggest nuclear arsenal in the world, are a cluster bombs that Russia has. That's what Vladimir Putin claimed. It will even recuperate for everything lost in Ukraine, for the lost tanks, for the lost equipment, and so on. Still, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because what defines you, finally, in a situation like this one, it's not always like that. Like in a situation like was mine in 2013, when they threw me inside a psychiatric institution, is basically your sacrifice. When it comes to that, it's the kind of stuff that defines you. Today, it's more important than ever was for the people of Ukraine to understand this concept. What worries me the most is the same issue that worried, in fact, Ukrainian politicians. Because Ukrainians, as I stated, undoubtedly are more heroic, more patriotic than Finnish people. What I have seen here in this war is outmatching clips, footages from the front in Finland. What is going on over there in Ukraine, the way Ukrainian soldiers are getting up with, the way they get this stuff done, it's incredible, it's unbelievable. If you look at these bombs flying around, exploding, shrapnels flying around, what worries me is something else, and it's exactly what worried. And it's what I would imply in, if I would have chance today, is the number, as Ukrainian politicians stated, the number for what cost, basically, all this. You know, sacrifice. For what cost, basically? Because they talked about a number of people that are going to be injured. They talked about rehabilitation of these people. They discussed about medical procedures, total rehabilitations, ability for these people to get back into society and function like a normal, citizens. Continue to work, live their lives with their families and stuff like this. That's the stuff, Joe. That's the stuff that worries me tremendously next to all other issues. Ukraine, in this war, became martyr for entire Europe. Example for every country in the Europe on how to not give in to the much bigger enemy. It's determination that is defining Ukraine today, just as it would any other European country with amount weapons that they have, and they're basically emptying the arsenal, the stockpile, the Western stockpile, the outdated weapons that West wants to get rid of, basically, which is the right thing to do, because Russia is doing the same thing. Prior to using a newer weaponry, this is just the system that both sides, I realized, are using. However, what I want to say to you is, for what price? For what price? I am the one that's worried about people that are going to get injured, they're going to get hurt. It's not like this that I would want to push out, I'm not a lunatic that would want to push out for the use of cluster bombs and stuff like this. It's just a matter of getting the job done, because these are the tools, the only tools. Ukraine doesn't have any kind of air superiority, don't have that stuff that can be and are used in this war for the people of Ukraine. Yes, I am going to publish this video despite everything. I have to alert that the war that is coming is going to be bloody. It's called the cluster bombs war, for which Russians have calculated it's going to leave God knows how many Ukrainian. You know, the amount of Ukrainian civilians that the Russian military crippled, destroyed, killed. Oh, this is crazy. This is astonishing, insane. But Vladimir Putin should not expect that his death threats, that his terror, that somebody's going to bend down, that people are going to bend down and say, okay, you know, let's just give in, because that's the kind of stuff Putin counts on. That's the kind of stuff Putin counts. Putin is a terrorist that believes, with his circle of people such as Medvedev, Dmitry Medvedev, Sergei Lavrov, Shoigu, believes that people are actually going to chicken out, eventually that they're going to get tired of this terror, horror, blood, and all that stuff. And based on my observation, that's just not happening. The Ukrainian military is determined, decided to go all the way to Donetsk, to go past Luhansk, to get every millimeter of Crimea back in their hands for the cost of whatever it takes. And this whole thing is going to be on the shoulders, on the arms of Duma, of Vladimir Putin, if you want to call him like this. Here's the whole pack of people, wolves over there, that are even crazier than Putin. You must know that Putin is not acting alone in this stuff. However, they have to get the message. They have to acknowledge the border, the Russian border, where the Russian border is with Ukraine. And it appears to me that the kind of people who never served in any kind of conflicts did not give any kind of sacrifice in their lives, no more than the people who do. So then, to make a compromise with the people like this, one has to use whatever it takes to shove them in their ass. The proof of the flag, of the Ukrainian flag in this case, through the night, which I hope is going to be on the borders prior to 2014. That's all there is to it.